Thank you, Lynn. I have got some good news regarding Veronica. She had talked to Regina, and Regina told her of this software that can be installed, and that Regina uses also because she has a Mac, like like Veronica does. And what this software will do, anything that is really designed for a PC, it'll help the Mac adapt to it and function. And so Regina has been using this, and so Veronica has purchased it, and so I'll be over there Saturday to install it for her, and we'll test it out and everything. And so she should be up and running to where you won't have to do the call her on the phone anymore. I hope, um, even though we definitely welcome you calling her and talking to her and everything. But we're gonna try that out and see. So and that way she can do her own recording and everything. So I think it'd be better all the way around. So um, keep your fingers crossed. So hopefully next week she'll be all dialed in for Awakening Together and also for the ACIM Gather parts of her program. So I'm going to go ahead and begin my show, and my show is a teaching called Cosmic History Chronicles, and I'm on the very first book. And I want to read something off the introduction again because just to kind of clear the air and make sure that this is something that is not a mainstream teaching. And the guy that comes on after me several times has explained that I shouldn't be talking about what I'm talking about, and I should be doing something else with my time. And so I just want to kind of touch on this, and this is what the book says about that kind of resistance. And wow, okay, beautiful. What it says is when you first encounter cosmic history, what you are actually dealing with is a confrontation of your own unexamined assumptions about reality. Therefore, it is wise when you encounter this knowledge to be able to put your mind on hold. That's to say, your conceptual mind, your mind of acquired knowledge, your mind that you have inherited from birth. You have to put this mind on hold and then practice how to keep it there. Through meditation, you should practice stopping your mind and become familiar with the fact that your usual habitual thoughts arise without even trying. And these habitual thoughts intrude as a filter on reality. So I'll just leave it at that. Just to make note that um, the ego does have resistance to anything new, um, and the ego will make up its mind about anything useful with the information that it thinks that it has, which sometimes is no information. So, anyways, having said that, this has to be listened to with an open mind, because it's not really going to tell you anything that you already know, and this is not telling me this is not telling me a lot of things that I don't already know. But what it is telling me is the intent of what this whole thing is for, and the principles behind it, although there are a lot of different terms he uses for ego thinking and spiritual thinking and teachings. But everything that I've read about this aligns with what the purpose of Awakening Together is about, and also course teaching. So that's why I thought it was a good idea to present this for a different point of view. And actually, this really helps me, and it reinforces the course. But this gives more of a overview of a more of a cosmic galactic overview, which is a whole overview, whereas the course is working on this particular part of our evolution, which is the ego transcendence of it. And so where I'm at on the chapter right now is exactly how is it the ego development being developed on a local level, meaning like different countries and different cultures coming up with the same non-dualistic teachings. And so this is where I left off, and this is why I want to continue. Okay, so I'm going to continue on. This is the chapter 1, what is cosmic history? So I'm going to continue from last week. When these traditions were first developed, however, what Buddhism, Christianity, Islam, and all other religions and spiritual teachings thought the world was not really the whole world. There was not yet a whole knowledge of the world. As the knowledge of the world has exploded and then imploded, the tendency of these traditions has been to hold on even tighter to what has been developed many centuries ago. This creates different forms of self-destructive sectarianism, whether it is in a more extreme Islamic form, a fundamental Christian form, or even a self-preserving Buddhist form. At the root of these beliefs systems, there is also a lack of knowledge of the existence of the Noosphere. And the Noosphere is what he refers to as awareness itself, and awareness as the Acacia records, as a record of everything and anything that can happen and does happen, and it's all in the realm of awareness. So going back to the beginning of the paragraph, what he's talking about is the development of the major thought systems in the world: Buddhism, Christianity, and Islam. Those are the big three non-dual. And I would put and I would say I would put Christianity in there in the sense that Jesus Christ did teach on a non-dual way, but this thing is, the way it's developed is a whole thing of a dualistic teaching. And having experienced it in myself, in my life, I was taught that I'm going to go to hell if if I miss mass on Sunday, and I really believed it. It was a tough deal. Okay, so let's see. So anyways, what he's talking about these local teachings, but these local teachings did not have the benefit of a global perspective. And so as any kind of cultural, traditional practices and beliefs, they they were there for that purpose of holding a sense of purpose for the individuals in time. So as we are moving into a more and more global understanding of of uh, of the whole dynamics of everyone's culture, this is creating more of a universal awareness, and that universal awareness is leading us to evolve into a greater change and a releasing, or actually more of a confrontation of questioning these these hard, um, I don't want to say not hard, but these beliefs that were never questioned. Now they're up for question. And so he expresses this, that we are, this questioning is taking a form of where some of us are going along and opening our minds to these changes, or we have the self-destructive sectarianism, like the Islamic form, which are the extreme Islamics, which are very hardened and kind of like going back in tradition with the way they treat their women, and very hard line. Same thing with, you see the Christians doing the same thing, very very rigid. And then what a self-preserving Buddhist form is, I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it is probably, the people that are not going with a global understanding and global view, and are very hardline in digging in and being more and more um, conservative, for lack of a better word. Okay, so in the um, next paragraph, knowledge of the noosphere, which I like to think of just pure awareness, can only come as a result of human becoming the planetary human. When this occurs, the human realizes that the Earth really is a type of sphere in space, and has a real construct of the knowledge of that space in relationship to the galactic center and to the whole galactic order. This evolution of knowledge up until this point in time has created all the different problems in the world today, although this does not excuse any of these inadequate belief systems. Now, all the belief systems must be evaluated or re-evaluated. They can only be re-evaluated within the context of cosmic history, inclusive of the knowledge of the noosphere and the cybersphere. So basically, what he is saying here is just pretty much what I had just finished saying, that all of our belief systems are now in an inadequate stage to understand the whole view of the world, or the evolution that we're finding ourselves in. And in the context of cosmic history, inclusive of the knowledge of the noosphere and the cybersphere. And so basically what he's saying is that the next step of evolution is going to be a spiritual evolution, because awareness is a spiritual reality and not a material reality. And the cybersphere is what he calls the inertia of evolution. And so this is now moving us towards this evolution if we like it or not. We are going to move into that spiritual realm if we like it or not. And this, to me, reminds me that this is the required course that the Course of Miracles is all about. Okay, so the next paragraph, let me take a sip of my juice. Okay, when we talk about cosmic history, we are talking about the imprint of the universal field of intelligence as a whole order within the noosphere and informing the psi bank plates. Only at this point in time could we really come to cosmic history. We see that cosmic history is also a point of evolutionary realization. We have come to a certain place in the evolution of knowledge on the earth that necessitates a leap into expanded knowledge. This expanded knowledge is cosmic history. And when I read this, I really do believe that when he's talking about cosmic history, he's talking about the Holy Spirit. Because for me, the Holy Spirit is letting go of my ego understanding and letting intelligence, the higher intelligence of God, the aspects of God, of order, of intelligence, of wisdom, take over. And to me, moving out of the ego realm of what he's talking about in this evolution is letting go, moving into that spiritual sense. And it is the Holy Spirit that guides that intelligence and guides that structure. So what he's talking about cosmic history is more of that of the help of moving in to that spiritual evolution that we're moving into. It is a perspective that is taking into consideration the whole development of consciousness. Okay, so that's the end of this part of the first chapter, and we're going to the next part of the first chapter, which is called Dissipating the Clouds of Materialism. Noospheric thinking is not materialistic thinking. This is a fundamental point. The noosphere, by its very nature, is a fourth dimensional mental, spiritual, planetary organ. This is the organ of the planet's mental, spiritual evolution in relationship to the star that is hosting it. This is a radically different point of view of perception from the current system of thought. You can hardly talk about these two in the same breath. And all of these people, all of us that are course students, and this kind of is a sense in what he's talking about. When we're in the ego thought system, we are in the ego thought system. But when we are not in the ego thought system, all of the craziness and all of the insanity and the insane thoughts of judgments and condemnations and all of that, it doesn't exist. It's all an illusion. And so this is what he is basically talking about, the difference between the materialistic thinking and the fourth dimensional spiritual place that we are evolving into. Now, it's interesting that he's talking about the noosphere as a planetary organ, like it is like a part of our body. Let's say our body has a heart or a lung or something. So he's talking about this Earth in a galactic cosmic way as part of the whole. And then this evolution that we are going through is an organ that is developing in that whole sense. Okay, so the next paragraph is a rather long one. Okay, the cybersphere is a system of intelligence produced by and dependent upon the artificial electronic information technology, example, the internet. The cybersphere is a primitive shadow of the noosphere. It is a planetary sphere, but still it is only a shadow, not the real luminous essence of the noospheric thought system. This cybersphere is contained in the technosphere and provides the connective tissue of the present-day belief system and world construct. We could metaphorically liken the present world construct to a massive cloud covering the planet, which is maintained by a total materialistic belief system. The more the belief system of materialism maintains itself, the denser the cloud covering becomes. The cloud cover does not mean that there isn't the luminous noospheric stratosphere above it. The noosphere is there regardless of the cloud cover, so awareness always is. Cybersphere is talking about the informational age of the internet, TV, media, and all of that. Technosphere is a technology mentality, for lack of a better word, that drives the information and is the vehicle for this information that only touches only a part of the awareness, because everything happens in awareness. Even ego thoughts systems happen in awareness, but it's just a modulation of the awareness. Okay, so okay, next paragraph. Disillusionment of the cloud covering of the materialistic belief system is the purpose of cosmic history. Only then can the clear mental field of the human shine through as the planetary mental field. Upon dissolution of the cloud cover or belief system, the apparatus by which this belief system maintains itself will be transformed, transmuted, and dissolved, so that all that remains is the noosphere. So, to this, this right here represents, to me, is the transformed, transmuted, and dissolved ego thought system. To, I think, to an extreme level, which I'm not there yet. I'm just still trying to get rid of the ego. So, okay, next paragraph. It would seem to some minds that it is a rather impossible task to dissolve the materialistic belief system, which is kind of me right now. Just as the most hardened materialistic cynics say that it's impossible to change the calendar. They say this because they actually believe you will never dissolve the materialistic belief system. Everyone who believes in the new time, capitalized new time, and the calendar change has to encounter these types of responses, not once, but many times. The calendar change peace movement is like a little shoot or sprout. Behind that shoot or sprout is a ray of light poking into the dense materialistic belief system. And behind that ray of light is actually the whole elaboration of the principal structure and construct which constitutes cosmic history. This whole paragraph here reminds me of the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is that ray of light that is actually the whole elaboration of the principal structure, constructs that constitute cosmic history. The movement that he's talking about would be us course students or any kind of non-dual teachings that are in the background of this whole egotistic materialistic world. I mean, we don't see when we're watching CNN, there is not a Holy Spirit view of the election of Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton or anyone. So this kind of non-dual teaching is very much in the background for now. Okay, so next paragraph. This materialistic belief system has been with the human species since the beginning of the cycle of history, which means we, since the beginning of the cycle of history, have believed that we are bodies. In fact, we could say that the materialistic belief system is what created the cycle of human history. The more that the cycle of history comes to the present moment, the more it obscures the potential for understanding the reality of cosmic history. In the highest annals of spiritual and religious thought, in the highest civilizations, there has always been some comprehension of cosmic history. I kind of like to think of maybe cosmic history as a non-duality also, but it's much more than that. Any belief system that has developed a view regarding the absolute or God as the ultimate reality, or any idea of there being an absolute or ultimate reality, such as Buddha's Dharmakaya. These are all touching on principles of cosmic history, or I would like to say non-duality. And I think everything here is pretty self-explanatory. And I do agree with that part of it. Okay, next paragraph. Unfortunately, these points of view have become increasingly esoteric and then invisible and finally non-existent as the process of materialistic human history has progressed. And that brings to mind just the teaching of Jesus. I do really believe that back in the day when he was walking this earth, that the apostles really did understand the non-dual teachings, but as the materialistic and ego thought system progressed, it just turned into the church turned into a big um, ego survival mechanism. So next sentences. When we talk about human history in the way it is written about in all the textbooks, we are actually talking about the history and extension of human materialism through competing political forces called empires. These empires are based on principles of acquisitions and greed and support themselves by the belief that humans are weak and that it is human nature to be susceptible to greed. If that isn't the ego thought system, what is? In this limited belief system, there is nothing that can stop human greed but to curb acquisitive instincts by the creation of political structures like democracy, which supposedly keep these nasty aspects of human nature at bay, but in reality only further them because it is all based on a lie. The belief system that believes humans are fundamentally evil and cannot be trusted creates a world of fear and mistrust, war, and terrorism. Such is the definition of the dominant world construct called historical materialism. So, this is very, very interesting. Um, this whole part about the political structures are designed to perpetuate and protect that belief system that we are evil, which is the ego thought system. So it's all created about the belief of this ego thought system of survival, of insanity. I mean, that is the reality of the political systems that are all over the world. We're here because you guys are evil, and we're going to protect you from yourselves. There's no such thing as a decent, loving, um, compassionate, enlightened person in this world. It's just like they're in these governments nowadays. They're not even trying to promote this type of thinking of doing away with the ego thought system and developing human beings that are enlightened. We're not even making an effort. The governments here are not even making an effort to evolve and transcend this assumption that everybody on earth is evil, for crying out loud. Wow. That is the assumption that's being made about the human race today, is that we are basically greedy, evil little whatevers. So, wow. Okay. Let's move on to the next part. And you know, that whole thing is just really, really true down to the core of the ego thought system of, you know, me growing up, just believing that whole idea of not good enough, not loved, um, and guilt. I mean, to the max. I grew up believing that whole thing, and I just it's just really hitting me right now that the whole everything is based on maintaining that that belief, that whole belief, everything that we're really. You look out design, all the laws, I mean, the whole structure of political systems and everything. It's designed that you are guilty, you can't be trusted, and we're not even going to try to tell you otherwise. Holy moly. Okay, next chapter. Next chapter in part one. Deconstruct, purify, and reformulate. That sounds like a good chapter. From the cosmic history point of view, it is erroneous to believe that the human is basically evil and cannot be stopped in greed. Now that's refreshing to me. If this were true in nature, then nature would be destroying itself. Is the human being an exception? This faulty belief system regarding the nature of the human being is ingrained in historical materialism and plays over and over again in a self-limiting feedback loop. If you tell somebody something enough times, they will believe it and create the world accordingly. From the point of view of the Holy Koran and the Bible, we live in Satan's world. This is the world of the fallen human. Or, from the Buddhist point of view, we live in a world that is created by ego samsara. These worldviews constitute a fundamental premise of historical materialism. Okay. And I can understand where he says this faulty belief system regarding the nature of the human being is ingrained in historical materialism and plays over and over again in a self-limiting feedback loop. Because this, in the history of mankind, that's all we've ever known, that's all we've ever recorded. But now we are at a point where we are going to be evolving into the required course, into that spiritual realization. And so I can understand why this is so hard to do, because in all of human history, there are only few examples where this has actually been close to being done. And so all of these other teachings are affirming that this is the real world by explaining all of the ego thought system and really affirming that this is the real world, but also saying that there is a different world, but they acknowledge that this ego thought system world is actually real. Okay, next paragraph. In order to deconstruct historical materialism, which is at the root of the present world construct, we have to see what is the opposite of materialism. which is actually spiritual reality. Materialism is just a single exception to the ground of spiritual reality, which is the ground of everything. So ultimately, materialism must flounder because of the ground of reality is spiritual. This truth, however, does not lessen the problem of the prevailing materialistic construct of the world. What I like about this paragraph is everything is what he says is actually spiritual reality. So even though the material world appears non-spiritual, everything about the material is actually order and intelligence and harmony in form. So there could not be any kind of appearance in form if it did not have the spiritual aspects or spiritual essences, the essence of it in it. So actually all form in essence really is spiritual. It just in our third dimensional reality, everything our perception is a physical, material observation, or I don't want to say reality, but this is our perception of it. Okay, next paragraph. It is important to understand that this materialistic construct of the world is a relative one, and it has characterized this cycle of what is referred to as human history, merely for the testing of the human soul. To pass this test is to return again to a purely spiritual point of view, a point of view that understands that the garment of reality is holy, that there is a divine authorship to the universe, and that the soul exists with the inscription of God that says, "Remember me." And I can really relate to this in a very personal way, and I'm sure there are a lot of people that can agree with me, is that deep down when anything really, really matters, you know, we know that there is a presence that is beyond our physical and mental and material understanding. Deep down, when it really comes down to it, yes, I can say that there is a spiritual presence that I remember, but that is just me. And I do believe that this reality is holy. And in this point in time that we are moving through an evolutionary period that is going to take time. And the course is full of examples to be loving, patient to yourself, as we move through this evolutionary period. Okay, and also the whole concept of remember me in the course is, we go all the way back down to the tiny mad idea. And the course is saying that is basically what we're trying to do. We're trying to get back to that place of, because that place of that spiritual purity, because we do remember it. We don't really believe the ego is such a holy presence in our life. All right, next paragraph. To deconstruct the root of the prevailing belief system, you must determinedly, is that a word? Determinedly engage in a higher spiritual point of view. I like to call that mind training. There have been and still are different spiritual points of view aimed at this direction, but none have been able to deconstruct the entire world construct. They have instead become embattled until they themselves become part of that world point of view where everyone is forced in one form or another into the materialistic technosphere construct from which it appears there is no escape. Therefore, it is mandatory that not only a fresh spiritual point of view is introduced, but also a higher formation of planetary human knowledge. This is where cosmic history comes into play. So what I believe, what he is saying, that there have been different systems and none have been able to deconstruct the entire world construct because they get absorbed into the materialistic, just like the church or Islam or Buddhism. We just they start off as pure, but then they get absorbed into the materialistic techno sphere, and then it is like not pure anymore. Okay. And also he is saying it needs to be, that point of view needs to be introduced, has got to be a higher point of view, a higher wisdom and knowledge that has the observer view, I would like to say, and can see above the technosphere and the cybersphere and see it like as a cloud, like if you're in an airplane and you see the clouds below, to see all of that for what it really is and get a like, bird's eye view, so to speak, that of what exactly it is. Because when we're in it, absorbed in TV, YouTube, or whatever we are, it is just it's just an image that we are living and being emotionally involved with, and we can't see it. So this is the type of knowledge that we need to come from, and this is where he's saying that the cosmic history comes in to play, which means that we're going to see the bigger picture. Okay, next paragraph. It must be understood that cosmic history is a spiritual transmission. Though sometimes it might look like science or mathematics or solar studies, it is actually a spiritual transmission and is transmitted as light is transmitted or as heat is transmitted. You flick a light switch and boom, you just got transmitted light. Or you turn on the heat and he has this expression WRRR, I guess that means rrr. You feel it. It's not anything that you cognitively say. It is just light and heat, and it's bright and it's warm now. To me, this spiritual transmission To me, this sounds like more like grace. Grace to me. It's nothing that I can pull out of the heavens and transmit into myself individually. Is that grace is the means where I'm able to have the ability to flick a light switch or turn on the heat, that is being provided for me through this transmission. And I'd like to think of this transmission as grace. Okay, next paragraph. Same thing with cosmic history. It is ultimately a transmission like this. Why? Because cosmic history is merely the intrinsic, innate tendency in the all-abiding reality to be known or made consciously self-reflective. Ooh, I like that. The all-abiding reality is like light or heat. Just like you have to wait for the sun to come up or turn on the light switch to get light, you must also clear and purify your mind so it can reach the all-abiding reality. The intelligence contained within the cosmic history core has as its purpose the reformulation of the human mind and the human knowledge base. This reformation is according to the principles of the planetary noosphere, which receives the template and has embedded in it the template of cosmic history. All right, a lot said in that paragraph. I like the part where cosmic history, which I like to think of as the Holy Spirit, as truth, as the bridge, is the intrinsic innate tendency in all abiding reality to be known or made consciously self-reflective. So then we finally get out of the ego thinking, rise above it, so we can be aware of the ego thought system as the observer, as the Christ mind, seeing it independently, transcending it. And that is the perspective of the all-abiding reality, the all-abiding awareness, the Christ consciousness. And it says the intelligence contained within the cosmic history core has as its purpose the reformation of the human mind and the human knowledge base. And I like this also because everything that it's going to take for me or us to evolve from the ego thought system to the spiritual thought system is inherently in us. You know, when I was studying the course, there were so many times where I kept falling back into ego thinking, and I would really take it personal as to there's got to be something wrong with me, why can't I get it, and so on and so forth. And I like this part here is because that everything that it's going to take for me to evolve is already built in me, and is going to be receptive and is going to evolve. And like I had said earlier, if I like it or not. So this helps me to be really a lot more patient with myself, not to take things personal about it. When the ego thought system comes up, I can look at it as a mirage, as something that I am evolving out of, and I can see that as a normal consequence of evolution, and not something that I'm inherently faulty and made a conscious decision to be an ego. Not saying that I'm not responsible for it. I'm definitely responsible for that, for my evolution into the spiritual realm. And this is not saying that I'm not. This is just giving me perspective of what is occurring in my life and what my role is, because this is saying that I need to participate in this evolution, in where it refers to that it is that I am going to have that perspective, means that I need to take the steps. I got to do the work in order to go through this evolution, if I like it or not, because once again it is a required course. So um, I think I'm going to end there. Let me mark my book, because the next paragraph is rather long, and I want to be able to go through this and um, and not rush it. But once again, this going through this, there's a lot of different new terms that I'm trying to kind of build a bridge between the terms and what most course students are familiar with, just to make it easier for you to follow along. And like I said at the beginning, I believe that for me it has helped me to reinforce a lot of course principles. For me, I'm the kind of person that needs to hear it from the same thing, same principle, from different angles in order for me to get it. And so I don't strictly stay to the course. I do explore different teachings, and I find that just like what this book is saying, that it is a is that that the non-dual parts um, are true in a lot of other thought systems. So I will let go of the mic and wish everyone a good evening.